try!
IPR wants to give very serious support to Indo-Pacific rugby, and this is the vehicle we're going to do it in. And throughout this, we're going to transform rugby and make the Western Force from a club without a licence to Australia's leading club in the Indo-Pacific region. So who is behind this? Well, it's the Minderoo organisation team. As you know, we're a very major philanthropic group, net assets over 6 billion, net earnings over 500 million. We're in a position where we can do this. This will not be short of risk, and we are prepared to take that risk in time and energy, Emily's exhaustion and capital, and make it happen. Our vision is to make rugby the community building sport of choice for the entire Indo-Pacific region. Our purpose is to attract the greatest talent, generate that capacity of fans, and really build opportunities for Australians throughout the Indo-Pacific. Creating, of course, our objectives, the key rugby championship, where without competition there, and we will absolutely blast through and make rugby the sport of choice for everything we can, and become the most watched and entertaining sport in each country. Now, these are big, hairy goals. Media, you would know that I'm comfortable with those, and trying and failing is okay by us. Trying and failing and not trying again is not okay, and that's what you'll be seeing from us. The determination to take on BHP and Rio Tinto and others on the sporting field of business will be no less than the sporting field of rugby. So 6 clubs, 6 markets in a time zone which captures 60% of the world's market. Now, this is what is exciting. It's 90% of the forecast world economic growth out of this region. It's a region which Perth is in a unique position, as is all of Australia, to share a similar time zone. We are the Indo-Pacific. We are the growth. We are part of the growth of the next 3 decades. We aren't the old world. We are the new. We are of this region, and we can lead in sport in this region. So this is how rugby's known. This is how it must become. Many of you would have been to an American, even college football game. You can have a fantastic afternoon out. Your side may have won or lost, but you go home thinking, that was a great day. It's a sport now which is very careful to cater for women, for families, men going out and getting plastered on a Saturday afternoon and excuses to go to the rugby and then come back. Those days are gone. Right now, weekends are gold. Who calls the shots on families and weekends? Women. We need to make sure that we make this highly inclusive in a game which really captures the spirit of rugby and captures the excitement of being in the Indo-Pacific. And I want to show you a short reel now, which is our vision of what can be rugby in the Indo-Pacific.
A setting sun, swallowed by the sea, will always rise again. Forces awaken, lands connect, to ignite the passion. Think of the unimaginable. Well, what does that look like? Think of tomorrow. What does that look like? What if I told you that it's all here, now, waiting? That speaks to the heart and soul of our game, our fans, our people, our future. answer the call. Rise to the occasion. The Indo-Pacific Rugby Championship.
Okay, so as you can see, we're serious about this, ladies and gentlemen. The two competition windows, which is July, October, March, June, we're awaiting ARU's final recommendation. 6 teams, home and away, so a total of 33 matches. This is to get rolling. And as we're successful, 2019, 2020, we'll expand that to 8 to 10 to 20 to 22 and really capture the Indo-Pacific. Opportunities for member unions are substantial. Strategic alliances, we know these countries incredibly well. We know India, China, Indonesia, you just name it, we're there. And we intend introducing and creating sister clubs for our own rugby unions here in Australia. Every time a great Australian player doesn't leave for more capital, and I think that's fair enough. They want to choose the house where they live, the schools they send their kids to as well. But we will have a capital base where we can counterbalance what the Europeans can offer, what the Japanese can offer, and further bring Australia's greatest players back. If you look on Chequers calculations, there's between 160 and 180 great players of Australia playing overseas. That's a lot of players. If, say, 60 of those are Super Rugby standard, count on about 15 being Wallaby standard. We're in a position in this competition as the vehicle to bring those players back and prevent our best players leaving. So this is a major contribution. Every time we do, we can share a cost. If a Super Rugby club wants to have access to that player for Super Rugby, then we can make that player available. Instead of paying for 12 months, they get to pay for 4 months. It's a total win-win scenario. If they want to play for the Wallabies, that's fantastic. They've been brought back into or prevented leaving the country at our cost, and we make them immediately available to the Wallabies. It's our objective, it's our ambition, ladies and gentlemen, to see Australia win the World Cup in 2019. It needs very considerable investment, and we would only do that if we have the fastest growing digital consumer market, that 90% I spoke of, all in the same time zone. If you're a retailer, if you're Walmart, you're advertising, or if you're a digital platform, do you want your customers to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning, or 6 a.m. or 2 a.m. to watch their favourite players and to watch the key competitions? No, you would like to know on a Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening within the same time. It could be in Tokyo, could be Shanghai, could be Western Australia, could be anywhere. You switch on that television or you go to that stadium, you're going to see the sport you want, the players you want in the competition you want. That's a very major competitive advantage for retailers, for broadcasters, for everyone who's going to fund the sport of rugby. Esports broadcasters. Now, this is the fastest growing income in sports. Obviously, most of you have heard of these names. Like it or not, it's the future of sport revenues. It's kicking off at 1.5 billion. It's growing to 1.6 billion people just by 2020. These numbers are now considered conservative. And, sorry, can I just switch back? I need a vehicle to connect with millennials, not so much in Australia, but millennials all throughout the Indo-Pacific. This gives us that vehicle. Thank you. Supported by government. Comments from Julie Bishop, very strong. Greg, I urge everyone to work together to cooperate to build a bigger, brighter vision for Australian rugby. That's exactly why we're here, to turn that tide. That tide has been going out, ladies and gentlemen, for too many years. We want to turn that tide. We want to bring that tide of popularity for rugby back into Australia.
Business and government leaders from 45 countries in the Indo-Pacific region have met in Perth, Western Australia, for an intergovernmental meeting, the Bali process. The gathering was co-chaired by Andrew Forrest, founder of Australia's Fortescue Metals Group, the country's Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, MTech founder Edi Sariat Marja, and Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi, Indonesia. Participating countries shared a strong interest in an Indo-Pacific Rugby Championship. The Australian government is highly supportive of the opportunities the Indo-Pacific Rugby Championship brings to this region.
I'm pleased to support the Indo-Pacific Rugby Championship, a great opportunity for rugby and for sports diplomacy. This championship will drive deeper cultural and diplomatic engagement. There'll be economic benefits as well, for the tourists will come from all over the world. I congratulate Andrew Forrest and his team for ensuring that rugby in Australia remains a premier national sporting code.
So IPR values, this is who we are, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we stand for. Family and community centred, innovative, player welfare, gender equality, of course, and entertaining. We are going to be the petri dish for rule change experiments for World Rugby. If they want to try changing the rules, it could be anything. It could be more points for a try. It could be hands in the ruck. You know, I'm not saying it could be any of these, but what we are prepared to do is give them a try, and give them a try in full competition. If they work, the crowd loves it. If it's a faster moving game, it's a more collaborative game which connects stronger with what the fans want, with what the audiences want, and what the players enjoy, then we're going to go for it. As I've said, and junior development programs linked to IPR teams. IPR Rugrats Rugby, very similar to AFL Auskick. AFL Auskick is probably the single greatest success for AFL. It's what's divided AFL and rugby. They've got down into the grassroots. They've had full parental participation with kids. It costs a lot of money, but not AFL. They have National Australia Bank funding it all, and it's just a complete win-win scenario. We don't intend to just do that in Australia. We intend to do it in every country which adopts the Indo-Pacific Rugby Championships, growing rugby, growing community, growing that collegiality between communities across their nations as well as ours. Thank you. So, in collaboration, as we've mentioned with World Rugby, I've mentioned the rule initiatives, growing participation in women's rugby, new and diverse revenue streams, and of course investing in high performance. All of these things I'm happy to flesh out with you, team, in Q&A. Innovative, as I've mentioned, try, fail, try, succeed. Law innovations, player wearables, so you can hear what the players are saying, watch their heartbeat, blood pressure, strong non-game stadium fan experience. What's very important to us is a 5-star entertainment and catering experience. We want way more, let's just get practical, we want way more ladies' loos than men's. If ladies are not comfortable going to a long game of rugby, we're going to make it comfortable for them. You know, we're not tolerating these half-an-hour queues which can destroy the experiences of everybody. We want it to be highly entertaining. That glimpse you got in that reel gives you a view that we're going to be non-traditional and adventurous. We're going to use the leading artists, light displays, high-tech, a major festival atmosphere team. So when you go back from an IPR game, your team might have won or lost. I mean, that's really interesting. But did you have a great day out? Did you really enjoy your afternoon and evening? Was that a great investment of your precious weekend time? It absolutely was, even if your team lost it. As you know now, you've got half the stadium's unhappy, half the stadium's elated. That's not sustainable, team. You want the whole stadium, everyone watching, to go home and feel that was great. Commercial structure, private ownership model to accept the risk, centralisation of all the key decisions, naming rights and licensing, and then revenue sharing and equalisation. Delivery, competition delivery, we've touched on this, localised into clubs, compliance with World Rugby, and again, centralised administration for best practice administration. Organisation, this is a lot of detail here, team, but I wanted to put it out there. This is taking the wrap off our tournament for the first time. I want you to know that players and fans will come first. That's who we serve. We're not here to be served by them. We serve them. We are their servants. They are our masters. What makes it for fans and players, this line, and this line has to deliver for. We want a highly competitive team. We're going to equalise the talent from various nations who really want to participate. We're about to start a major road show all throughout the Indo-Pacific. We intend to deliver by November 14 to World Rugby our selection of the first 6 countries to play. And we do that, of course, with World Rugby sanction and their encouragement so that we can deliver those 6 names of those 6 countries to their board meeting, to their major board meeting, November 14. ARU has accepted that November 2 is the deadline for them to nominate the playing window. And then with that playing window, ARU and World Rugby endorsement, we start that roadshow and deliver the selection November 14. But it includes, sorry, Emily, it includes men's and women's, 15s and 7s. You've got easily the fastest growing part of rugby is women's rugby, not just in 7s. We tend to really encourage it for 15s as well. So, as I alluded to, ARU board next steps by November 2, advise their preferred competition window, approve in principle, confirm eligibility, advise any other reasonable and financial sustainability requirements. Thanks, Em. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, to make rugby the community building sport of choice throughout the Indo-Pacific region. It isn't possible as an objective, even as an ambition, without a major new competition. What you've witnessed this morning is that major new competition, which is the IPRC. I'm very happy now to take questions.
The teams from the graphic that you showed before, there were 9 cities. Will those 6 teams come from those 9 cities?
Not only. I've asked my IPR team to see them and many more. I've challenged them to get across to 2. Sometimes you can do 3 countries a day in Asia. And that'll be a very hard-working 12 days and to see a lot more than just 9 countries.
Andrew, is this? I was going to say, we've seen crowds in Super Rugby decline. We know there's not a whole lot of people going to the NRC. What makes you think this competition will be different for an Australian fan, rugby fan?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. We have to be different in everything. Recognising what works and what fails in the fields of all sporting competitions, not only rugby, but in baseball, basketball, American football, wherever you look, what works best, what in-stadium and out-of-stadium engagement, like, say, esports, do we really need to foster, do we really need to invest in? That's where we're going. A key one for us will be family-orientated, gender equality and excitement. If we can't deliver excitement into each game, if we can't make it something which is thoroughly entertaining, then we should pack up and go home. But the capital base behind this is aiming completely at raising that fan excitement, that player participation into the audience. That's what generates the excitement, getting it out. And when you've seen such enormous growth in sports like kickboxing or soccer or things like that, there's no reason why World Rugby, our brand of rugby cannot be at least as popular, cannot have the same growth.
And what are the windows the ARU has to confirm?
Can you just switch back to that chart? I think it's fair enough, just to the 2 blue boxes. So it's laid out here. It's,
Okay, yeah.
we originally went for this because it plays after Super Rugby.
Yeah.
The ARU and World Rugby have asked us to consider March, June as well, recognising now that Super Rugby has an audience which spans around that part of the world. If you like, the bottom of the southern hemisphere, Argentina, Western Australia, New South Wales, New Zealand, and South Africa, with the only exception being Japan. And what we'll be doing, which is different, is going the other way. Instead of going laterally around the world, going vertically and into the same time zone. So very different audience participation. We're prepared to run with either.
Andrew, do you feel like you need a big name? I mean, obviously fans have paid big money to go and see Israel Flowers play. Do you feel like you need a name like that sort of attached to the championship early on?
Yeah, it's our intention to stop our best players leaving, bring our best players back, have marquee players. We've already got marquee players in the Western Force itself, and to populate maybe 3, 2, 4, whatever is required into other countries. We're really strong about growing their own base of talent. Take Malaysia, they've only got one person who's in that absolute, top standard. If Malaysia was selected, we would need to help them with marquee players.
Have you had any conversations with, say, current Wallabies players at the moment?
Yeah, of course.
And has there been interest from them?
I mean, if you speak to any player, and I think this is a really great point you're making through your question, this is for players. This opens up options, it opens up revenue, it opens up the possibility that they can not have to leave our fair shores to be paid what you can in, former Soviet Union countries or in Japan or in Europe, Ireland. We are now going to be competitive with those international clubs.
You also had conversations with Brett and the guys at World Rugby. What was their reaction when you went to them and sort of put forward this plan? Was there any scepticism there, or they were happy to?
No, we've had all the member unions over to Western Australia. We've given them a thorough and detailed technical briefing. This was not so technical. We've spent 24 hours just hashing it all through. And then we've taken all their advice, encouragement, suggestions on board, turned it into a major board presentation, which my team and I personally gave to the Australian Rugby Union Board yesterday morning. And there was a highly collaborative approach. We got strong encouragement from World Rugby. It's fair to say that the ARU obviously have a lot more work and a lot more thinking to do around this. This is the biggest thing to happen to Australian rugby in a very long time. So the ARU board are putting in the work to really assess it and to optimise it for Australian rugby.
The ARU flagged any concerns, or do you expect that with time they will be supportive?
Look, I think so. It came down to the competition window, and there's fors and against in wherever you go. So, and we could argue either way as well. So we just said, you choose. But would they like it not to happen? That's certainly didn't come up. What they want is the ability to fit it into what they think is optimal. We've said that either way we're prepared to support the NRC. We're prepared to promote it, sponsor it, etc. We think the NRC is important like ARU does. We just said ARU, so we don't argue, you nominate the competition timing.
And in terms of private ownership, have you had any sort of early discussions with backers from Asian countries? Or?
I have. This is not for the faint-hearted. It's not within the budget of any realms of imagination of the ARU. I'm prepared to underwrite that, and I'm also prepared to take on other investors. I actually don't mind if I do or I don't. If an investor wants to come in and they've got a whole lot more than capital to offer, I'll look at it. But if it's just capital, I'm not that interested.
Would there be one Australian team to start?
One Australian team to start.
Okay, sure, and that would be a force.
That'll be the force.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
But can we take on other Australian teams when we really get rolling? Yes. Why don't we want to take on the All Blacks and say, the Waratahs now? Well, the reason for that team is that when we go to the grand final, it won't be an Indo-Pacific grand final. So we need to make sure it is an Indo-Pacific grand final.
Okay. In terms of salary cap, have you thought about what you'd like to put in the pool there for players to lure them over?
Not yet, but I can say to you that I do have a reputation for doing what I say I'm going to do, and we will be investing to what makes the game fair and competitive across the 6 nations or across the 18 nations, wherever we get to, but having sufficient capital to make sure not only that players are attracted to play in the IPRC because it is all in the same time zone, they don't have to suffer, northern hemisphere weather conditions. Mum and dad can watch them wherever they play, even if they're in downtown around the corner here. But also that they're being fairly and competitively remunerated against a world scale.
And what will that contract look like for a player who you may bring back from, say, Europe, who's eligible for the Wallabies? Would they be contracted dually by you guys and the ARU, or
We're completely comfortable. You know, it's players have indicated to us that they prefer shorter contracts. Big sporting competitions tend to favour longer contracts. I'm happy to be set by the market. If anything, I'd probably be a little bit more persuaded by the players. I think that the IPRC is going to compete successfully with France, with other nations across Europe, Japan. I think we have the seeds here to drive a really successful competition out of half the world's population.
Do you think this could be successful, Andrew, in the here and now without the fate that befell the Western Force?
Would I have done this without the Western Force? No. We've done this because the community in Western Australia felt a very heavy hand of injustice. We can argue all day long if that's fair or not, but it's certainly you can't remove how someone feels. And when you've got literally tens of thousands of supporters which are active across Western Australia, the length and breadth of that massive state, and they're all up in arms, then you're thinking it shouldn't have happened. However, it has, and I said at that rugby rally, you may remember when 8,000 people turned up on a weekend just to show support for the Western Force prior to the decision being finally made. I said, if we win, we win, and if we lose, we win. And I explained that by saying, I will start another competition if we lose.
Sorry, I was going to say, given much of what you just said, has it been difficult working with the ARU, or have you seen signs of better administration?
No, well, I mean, I did say that in the ARU board meeting yesterday that some of the strongest metals are forged in the hottest fires. So we did start our relationship in a very tumultuous way. We blatantly disagreed with the decision. ARU felt they had no choice. They went ahead with the decision. Once it was done, then sat down around a table with Brett and the working party and said, look, let's make this happen. This will be fantastic for Australia. We're not going to lose the status of the game in Western Australia. And they could not ever since be more welcoming. There's been a lot of technical discussions between Eugenie and Stuart and Ian and Emily and the full gang. They've been fantastic. ARU's engaged with us at every level.
If the ARU were prepared to shut down the NRC and you could take those players and sort of get rid of the tier of rugby in Australia, would you be for that?
Look, I think that's a prophetic question, but that's something for the ARU to answer. At this stage, we believe we need that ladder, from schools to clubs, NRC, and then second tier, first tier Wallabies. We really need to keep that community progression. I want little children across Australia to see the path they have to go through if they want to wear a Wallabies jumper.
Andrew, in say 10 to 15 years, what would you imagine this competition looking like?
The most popular rugby competition in the world. Thanks very much, team. Really appreciate your attendance. Grateful for you turning out. If you can join us at lunch, that'd be even better. You're most welcome. Thank you very much.